The marketplace was crowded, filled with noise, voices, and shadows. Stalls of iron and stone stretched across the square, but none of them held comfort for her. The alien mother stood barefoot on the cold ground, her arms wrapped around her small child. Her body was thin and weak. Hunger had taken her strength, and fear had taken her hope. Yet she still tried to shield her child from the cruel stares around them. The child whimpered softly. His tiny fingers clutched at her torn clothing. His eyes were wide, innocent, and filled with hunger. She whispered to him gently, telling him to stay quiet, telling him that she was still here. She wanted to be strong for him, but her own lips trembled as she looked at the bread sellers who turned away. She had begged for food before. She had knelt in the dirt, asking strangers to give even a small piece of fruit for her son. They laughed at her. Some threw stones. Others told her she was useless, nothing but a burden. Each refusal carved another wound into her heart. She could not bear to see her child starve in her arms. The air was filled with the calls of merchants. They shouted about weapons, jewels, and rare metals. Rich men bargained loudly. No one cared for a mother with a hungry child. She realized she had only one choice left. It was the choice she had feared, the choice she had tried to deny. But tonight her son would not survive without it. Her legs shook as she stepped toward the auction stage. It was a wooden platform where the desperate were sold. Women, slaves, and prisoners stood there with their heads lowered. The crowd laughed and placed bets on their suffering. Her heart raced as she climbed the rough steps, holding her child close against her chest. The announcer smirked at her. He lifted her chin with a cruel hand and showed her face to the crowd. His voice echoed across the square as he shouted, "Another offering. Weak, but still alive. With a child to feed, she will do anything. Who will start the bidding?" The crowd roared. Some shouted prices. Others mocked her. They spoke of how cheap she must be, how desperate she looked. The alien mother bit her lip until it bled. She wanted to run, but she could not. Her son whimpered again, and she pressed him closer, whispering that it would be all right. In that moment, her shame felt heavier than her body. She lowered her head and spoke in a trembling voice. "Take me. I will serve. Just give food to my child." Her words shook, yet they cut through the noise. For a moment the crowd grew silent, as if even they were surprised by her despair. Then laughter broke out, louder than before. Men shouted cruel jokes. Women looked away, unwilling to watch. She stood trembling under the torchlight, her tears falling into her child's hair. Then it happened. From the back of the crowd, heavy boots struck the stone ground. A tall figure moved forward. He was not one of them. He was human. His eyes were steady, his face strong, and his armor carried the scars of war. Whispers spread quickly through the market. A human soldier had stepped into their trade. The announcer grinned, hoping for a high price. "Ah, human buyer! What will you pay for this alien woman?" The mother's heart froze. She expected chains, cruelty, maybe worse. She braced herself, covering her child with her arms. The human reached into his pouch and threw a small bag of coins onto the stage. The sound of metal rang clear. The announcer caught it, counting with greedy fingers. The human's voice followed, deep and calm. "She is mine now." The crowd cheered and laughed, expecting entertainment. They believed the human would treat her like property. They expected suffering. But the man did not take her by the arm. He did not strike her. Instead, he knelt before her. His armored hands reached for a loaf of bread from his pack, and he placed it gently in her child's hands. The boy blinked, stunned. His little fingers closed around the bread. His eyes lit with wonder as he took a bite, crumbs falling across his cheeks. The mother gasped, unable to believe what she saw. The human looked at her, his voice quiet but firm. "You are safe now. No chains. No cruelty. You and your child will come with me." The announcer stared, confused. The crowd murmured in shock. This was not how things were done. The mother's knees gave way, and she almost fell to the ground. Her child clung to her, chewing hungrily, his eyes bright for the first time in weeks. She could not speak. Her voice broke with tears, yet her heart felt something it had not felt in a long time. Hope. But behind the crowd's whispers, she could also feel danger. If this man defied their traditions, there would be consequences. She knew kindness was rare, and it came with risk. Still, she followed when he stood and held out his hand. The torches flickered as the human led her away. The night was heavy with silence, but her child's soft chewing was louder than the crowd's laughter. For the first time, she dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, this man had not bought her to own her. Maybe he had chosen her to save her. And so her desperate choice became the beginning of something she could not yet understand. The night air was cold as the human led the alien mother and her child away from the market. The sound of the crowd still echoed behind them, laughter and whispers chasing their steps. She kept her eyes low, afraid to look at him directly. Her arms wrapped tightly around her child as if at any moment the human might change his mind and take him away. Her heart was heavy with fear. She had heard stories of humans. Some said they were merciless conquerors. Others said they were strange protectors. She did not know which kind of man walked beside her now. They reached a quiet path that left the marketplace behind. The noise faded, and only the crunch of boots on stone remained. Torches on the walls flickered weakly, leaving long shadows. The child stirred in her arms, crumbs of bread still on his lips. His small voice whispered, "Mother, he gave me food." She kissed her child's head, whispering back, "Yes, but stay quiet." Her eyes shifted to the human. She wondered what price she would have to pay for that kindness. Finally, the man stopped. He turned to face her. The firelight revealed his features. His jaw was strong, but his eyes were not cruel. They were steady and calm, like the eyes of someone who had seen too much war yet refused to lose his soul. "You do not need to be afraid," he said. His voice was firm, but not harsh. "I did not buy you to own you. I did not buy you to hurt you. I bought you to save you." The alien mother trembled. She did not believe such words easily. Too many promises in her life had turned into betrayal. "Why?" she asked softly, her voice breaking. "Why would you do this?" The human paused before answering. His gaze dropped for a moment, as if heavy memories pressed against him. "Because I know hunger. I know loss. And I know what it means when no one helps." He lifted his eyes again. "No child should starve while others laugh. No mother should fall to her knees in shame just to feed her son." Her breath caught in her throat. She had expected chains, not compassion. Tears filled her eyes, and she struggled to speak. "I have nothing to give you. I cannot pay you back. You do not owe me anything," he replied. "Your life and your child's life are worth more than coins." Silence followed his words. She held her son tighter, her heart beating fast. She wanted to believe him, yet fear still whispered that it might be a trick. The human turned and motioned for her to follow. "Come! You both need shelter." She hesitated for a moment, but her son tugged at her clothing. His small voice said, "Please, mother, I am warm with him." The innocence in his words cut through her doubt. Slowly, she stepped forward. The path led to the edge of the city. There stood a simple home built of stone and wood, small compared to the grand halls of the merchants, yet it glowed with warmth. Smoke rose from its chimney, carrying the smell of firewood. When the door opened, the child's eyes widened. Inside was a single room with a bed, a table, and a fire burning brightly. It was not much, but to her it felt like a palace. The human placed more bread on the table along with a small jug of water. "Eat," he said gently. The boy rushed forward, tearing at the bread with eager hands. His laughter filled the room, light and pure, a sound she had not heard in many weeks. The mother stood frozen, watching him. Then, slowly, she sat at the table. With shaking hands, she took a piece of bread and drank the water. It was the first meal she had eaten without fear in a long time. She looked at the human again. "You are not like the others," she whispered. He sat across from her, his armor set aside, revealing scars across his arms. No. I am not. I fought in wars, but I learned that winning battles means nothing if you forget mercy. The fire crackled between them. For the first time, she noticed the weariness in his eyes. He was not a monster, not a master, but a man who carried his own pain. Her son climbed onto her lap, smiling with crumbs across his face. She kissed his cheek, her tears falling freely now. Thank you, she whispered again, her voice almost breaking. The human nodded. Rest here tonight. No one will harm you. Tomorrow we will speak of what comes next. As the flames flickered and the child drifted to sleep in her arms, the alien mother felt something she had not felt in years. It was small, fragile, but alive. Hope. Yet in the back of her mind she knew this peace could not last forever. The merchants would not stay silent. The crowd would not forget. Trouble would come. But for this one night, under the roof of a human who chose mercy, she allowed herself to believe that life could still hold kindness. And for the first time, she dared to imagine a future where love might grow from despair. The sun was rising when the alien mother opened her eyes. For a moment she did not remember where she was. The warmth of the fire and the soft breathing of her child beside her felt like a dream. She blinked and realized she was lying on a blanket near the hearth. The child's tiny body rested against her, his face peaceful, a faint smile on his lips. For the first time in many nights, he had slept without fear. No cold street, no cruel voices, only warmth. Her heart swelled, yet her chest tightened with doubt. Was this safety real, or was it just a fragile moment that would soon be taken away? She lifted her head and saw the human at the table. His armor rested against the wall, and his hands were busy mending a torn glove. He glanced at her and spoke quietly. You should rest more. Your body is weak. She sat up slowly, pulling her child closer. Her eyes searched his face for cruelty but found none. His voice was calm, his movements steady. She whispered, Why do you care for us? You could have left us in the market. The human paused, looking into the fire before answering. Because I remember a woman like you. She was not from your world, but she was a mother. She starved so her children could eat. I could not save her then. But I can save you now. The alien mother lowered her gaze, her throat tight. She wanted to speak, but words caught in her chest. She only nodded, her arms tightening around her child. The boy stirred and opened his eyes. His face lit up when he saw the bread on the table. He ran forward with eager steps, and the human laughed softly. He broke the bread in half and handed it to him. Eat slowly, he warned kindly. The child nodded with crumbs already sticking to his lips. His laughter filled the small house, echoing off the stone walls. The mother watched with tears shining in her eyes. That sound was more precious than gold. As the day passed, the human showed them the small garden outside the house. It was simple, with a few rows of vegetables and herbs. The air smelled of soil and green leaves. The mother looked at the plants with wonder. She had not seen such life in many days. This is how I survive, the human said. It is not much, but it is enough. The child bent down, touching the leaves with wide eyes. His laughter rang out again as he discovered a butterfly resting on a flower. The mother smiled faintly, though her heart was heavy with doubt. She whispered to herself, Is this kindness real? Or will it vanish like all things do? Later, when they returned inside, the human set a small bowl of stew on the table. Its smell filled the room, rich and warm. The boy rushed to eat, but the human stopped him gently, handing the first spoon to the mother. You first, he said. Her hands trembled as she took the bowl. She had not eaten a meal like this in years. With every bite, warmth spread through her body. She wanted to weep from the simple comfort of it. She looked at the man again, trying to understand him. You could have used me as a servant, she whispered. You could have demanded anything. Why not? The human looked at her directly. Because you are not a servant. You are a mother. You are a person. And no one should take away your dignity. Her breath shook. She lowered her face, hiding her tears behind her hands. No one had spoken to her like that in all her life. The child climbed onto her lap, holding a piece of bread toward her mouth. "Mother, eat more," he said with a smile. She kissed his forehead, her tears dripping onto his hair, but she ate as he asked. That night, after the child fell asleep again, the mother sat quietly near the fire. The human sat across from her, sharpening his blade. The firelight glinted on his scars. She studied him, trying to read his story. "You have lost someone," she said softly. He nodded once. "Yes. Many. War takes without asking. That is why I will not take from those who already suffer." Silence settled between them, but it was not heavy. It was a silence filled with understanding. The alien mother looked at her sleeping child, then at the human who had given them food, warmth, and safety. For the first time in her life, she felt the faint spark of trust. It was small and fragile, but it was there. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, she whispered to herself, "Maybe kindness can still exist in this world." And for a brief moment she allowed herself to believe that their lives had stepped out of despair and into the shelter of something brighter. The fire burned low as the alien mother sat quietly near the hearth. Her child slept beside her, his small chest rising and falling with gentle breaths. The human was seated across from her, sharpening his blade with slow, steady strokes. The sound of metal against stone filled the silence. She watched him for a long time. His face was calm, but the scars across his arms told another story. He was a man who had walked through battles, carrying both victory and loss. She wanted to understand him, but fear held her tongue. At last she spoke softly. "Why do you live here, away from your people?" The human looked at the fire before answering. His voice was low, heavy with memory. "Because war followed me everywhere. I fought, I survived, but I lost many I call brothers. Their voices still haunt me. Here, at least, the dead cannot reach me." The mother lowered her gaze. She felt the pain in his words. She too carried ghosts. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "I once had a husband. He died in the war between our tribes. I begged for help from my people, but they turned their backs. They called me weak. They called my child a burden. I had no choice but to wander." Her hands clenched the blanket as tears welled in her eyes. "Every day I asked myself if I was still a mother, or if I had already failed him." The human paused his work. He set the blade aside and leaned closer. His voice softened. "You did not fail. You are here. You fought with nothing left, yet your child still breathes. That is not failure. That is strength." The words struck her heart like light piercing through a storm. She covered her face with trembling hands, her tears flowing freely now. No one had ever called her strong. No one had ever seen her pain as courage. The human did not touch her, but his presence felt steady, like a shield against the darkness. "The world is cruel," he continued. "It tries to break those who are kind. But if we let it break us, then the cruel ones win." The mother lowered her hands, her face streaked with tears. She met his eyes, and in that moment she saw more than scars. She saw a soul who carried grief as she did, yet still chose to protect instead of destroy. Her child stirred in his sleep, murmuring softly. She bent to kiss his forehead, whispering, "I will never leave you." Then she looked back at the human. "I do not understand you. You could have bought any slave. You could have taken riches, land, or power. Why did you choose us?" The man leaned back, his eyes reflecting the fire. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke. "Because love is not bought. It is chosen. And when I saw you, I chose to give you life, not chains." Her breath caught. The word love lingered in her mind like a fragile seed. She had never known love that was not bound by pain. Her husband's death had left only sorrow. Her people had given her only rejection. Could love truly exist in a world of cruelty? Her heart whispered questions she could not speak. Was his kindness only mercy, or something more? Could a bond form between human and alien, broken by war yet bound by survival? The fire crackled louder, filling the silence between them. She wiped her tears with the edge of her sleeve and whispered, "If you are telling the truth, then I owe you more than my life." "You owe me nothing," the human replied firmly. "All I ask is that you do not give up. Your child needs you. That is enough." She stared at him, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Slowly, her fear began to bend into something new. It was not trust yet, but it was close. The night grew deeper. Outside, the wind howled across the hills. Inside, two broken souls sat near the fire, sharing pieces of their past like fragile offerings. As the flames dimmed, the alien mother whispered a vow to herself. She would no longer see herself as weak. She would carry her pain as strength, just as this human carried his scars. And though shadows of the past clung to her heart, she felt a spark of something that frightened and comforted her all at once. Hope. The days that followed felt almost unreal to the alien mother. Each morning she woke to the smell of firewood and bread. Her child laughed as he played outside, running among the rows of vegetables in the human's garden. For a brief time, she began to believe that safety might be possible. But peace never lasts long when the world is cruel. One afternoon, while she gathered water from the well near the garden, she heard voices in the distance. They were sharp and mocking. She froze, clutching the bucket tighter. The human stepped out of the house, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the road beyond the fence. 3 merchants from the market stood there. Their fine clothes glittered with coins, and their faces twisted into cruel smiles. One of them spoke loudly so both the human and the mother could hear. "So it is true. The soldier bought her. But instead of chains, he hides her in his home. Has he grown soft? Or has he lost his mind?" Another merchant laughed. "It does not matter. She was meant for us. She was meant to be sold and broken. This is a disgrace to the order of the city." The child, hearing the voices, ran to his mother and hid behind her skirt. His small hand gripped her leg tightly. Fear spread across her face, but she said nothing. Her body shook as old memories of cruelty filled her mind. The human stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Leave. She is no longer your concern." The merchants sneered. One spat on the ground. "Everything in that market is our concern. Do you think you can change the rules with your pity? Do you think your kind can protect her forever?" The human's eyes hardened. He rested a hand on the hilt of his blade. "I will protect them as long as I live. And I do not make threats. I keep them." For a moment silence fell. The merchants shifted uneasily, but their greed outweighed their fear. They whispered among themselves before turning to leave. One of them called back over his shoulder, "This will not end here. She belongs to the market, and you will pay for defying it." The mother's heart pounded as the men walked away. Her knees grew weak, and she almost fell to the ground. The child clung to her tighter, his small voice trembling. "Mother, will they take us?" She pulled him close and whispered, "No, I will not let them." But inside she was not sure. The human came to her side and rested a hand gently on her shoulder. "Do not fear them. Their words are loud, but their courage is weak. Still, they will try again. You must be ready for shadows that will follow us." That night the mother could not sleep. She sat near the fire, watching her child as he lay peacefully on the blanket. Her mind was filled with fear. Had she brought danger into this man's home? Would the merchants send guards or worse? The human noticed her silence. He set down his blade and sat across from her. His voice was steady. "You are thinking of leaving." She lowered her head. "I do not want to bring death to your door. They will punish you for helping me. They will punish my child too. If I go back, maybe they will leave you alone." The human shook his head firmly. "If you go back, they will destroy you. And I will not allow that. Do you not see? They will never stop unless someone stands against them." Her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to believe him, but fear had ruled her life for so long. "Why would you risk yourself for us?" she asked. He leaned closer, his voice softer now. Because I have already lost too many lives to cruelty. If I turn away from you, then I become no different from the men who laughed while you begged. I cannot be that man. Not again. The firelight flickered between them, casting long shadows across the room. She looked at his face, strong yet tired, scarred yet alive. Something in her chest stirred, something she had buried beneath years of pain. Her son shifted in his sleep, whispering softly. She brushed his hair back and then looked once more at the human. In his eyes she saw no chains, no greed, only resolve. The whispers of danger had begun, but in that moment she realized something important. Fear had followed her all her life, yet this man's presence gave her the strength to imagine another path. She whispered to herself, "Maybe love can be stronger than fear." Outside, the wind carried the voices of the merchants fading into the night. Inside, the small fire still burned, holding back the darkness. And though danger gathered beyond the walls, inside that humble home a fragile bond grew stronger, preparing them for the storm yet to come. The morning sun rose red across the sky, but the house felt heavy with silence. The alien mother woke to the sound of boots outside. Not one pair, but many. She froze, holding her child closer, her heart beating hard. The human was already awake, standing at the door with his sword at his side. When he opened it, a squad of guards filled the path. Their armor shone in the light, and their faces carried pride and cruelty. Behind them stood the merchants, smiling with victory. The leader of the guards stepped forward. His voice was sharp and commanding. "By order of the city, the alien woman must return to the market. She is property, and you are guilty of theft. Hand her over or face punishment." The mother gasped, clutching her child to her chest. She wanted to hide, but there was nowhere left to run. Her eyes turned to the human, searching for an answer, for hope. The human stepped outside, standing tall against the line of soldiers. His voice was calm but carried power. "She is not property. She is not for sale. She is under my protection." The crowd that had gathered around the house began to murmur. Whispers spread quickly. Some agreed with the guards. Others stared in shock, wondering if a single man could truly defy the law. The merchant shouted angrily, "You cannot change the order of our world with one act of pity. She belongs to us. Give her back." The human's jaw tightened. He raised his voice so all could hear. "She belongs to no one. She is a mother, and her child is innocent. If you think you can take them, then you will have to fight me." The guards shifted uneasily. They saw the steel in his eyes, the scars of many battles across his arms. He was only one man, yet he carried himself like an army. The alien mother's knees weakened. She had expected chains, but instead this human declared her freedom before an entire crowd. Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered to her child, "Do you hear him? He calls us free." The guard captain sneered. "Do not be a fool. You will die for this." The human lifted his sword slowly, its blade gleaming in the morning sun. "Then I will die standing, not bowing." The crowd gasped. Some drew back in fear. Others leaned forward, waiting to see blood. The merchants shouted for the guards to attack. The alien mother could not bear it. She stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Please! Do not fight for me. I am not worth your life." The human turned to her, his eyes steady, his voice firm. "You are worth more than chains. You are worth more than fear. And if I must fight, it will not be only for you. It will be for what is right." Her heart trembled. The words struck her deeper than any wound. For the first time she saw clearly. This was not mercy alone. This was love, chosen in the face of death. The guards raised their weapons, but before they could strike, the crowd began to shout. Some voices cried out in support of the human. Others jeered at the merchants. The tension grew heavy like a storm about to break. The child clung to his mother's skirt, whispering, "Mother, will he win?" She bent down, pressing her lips to his hair. Her voice shook as she whispered back, "He fights for us. That means we have already won, No matter what happens. The guards hesitated. The human stood firm, his blade unwavering. The merchants pushed forward, screaming for him to be cut down, but the whispers of the crowd grew louder. People were beginning to question. People were beginning to choose sides. The mother's tears fell freely now. Her heart burned with fear and hope at once. She knew this moment would decide everything. If the human fell, she would return to chains. If he stood, then maybe, just maybe, the world could change. And as he faced the guards with the strength of his voice and the fire in his heart, she understood the truth. This was no longer about survival. It was about love. A love strong enough to defy a city, a love that stood like a wall against cruelty, a love that had chosen her and her child above all else. The choice had been made. The human would not bow. The standoff stretched like an endless shadow. The guards stood with blades ready, yet none dared move first. The human faced them alone, his sword lifted, his body steady. Behind him, the alien mother clutched her child, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break. The merchants shouted angrily, spitting their commands. Strike him down! Take what belongs to the market! But their voices no longer held the same power. The crowd had grown. Men, women, and children from the city pressed close, their whispers rising. They had seen cruelty in the market for years. They had turned away, telling themselves it was the order of things. But now they watched a single human stand against that order. His courage stirred something inside them that fear had kept silent. One voice called out from the crowd. She is not property. Another followed. The child is innocent. Soon more voices rose, spreading like fire through dry grass. Let them be free. Let them live. The guards shifted uneasily. The captain snarled, but even he could feel the tide turning. If they struck now, they would not only fight the human. They would fight the people. The alien mother's tears streamed down her cheeks. She could hardly believe what she saw. The crowd that once mocked her now defended her. The man who could have enslaved her stood as her shield. And her child, once hungry and forgotten, now held hope in his small eyes. The guard captain growled at the human. This is not over. You have broken the law. One day it will come for you. The human lowered his blades slowly, his voice steady. Then let it come. I will not bow to cruelty. Not now. Not ever. The guards stepped back. One by one, they turned and marched away. The merchants shouted in rage, but no one listened. Their power had slipped from their hands. The crowd cheered, not with laughter but with pride. For the first time, they had seen that the law of chains could be broken. For the first time, they had witnessed love stronger than fear. The alien mother dropped to her knees, holding her child close. Her tears soaked his hair, but her heart was light. She looked up at the human, her voice trembling. You saved us. Not only with your sword, but with your heart. He sheathed his blade and stepped toward her. His hand reached out, not to command, not to bind, but to lift her gently to her feet. You are free now. Both of you. And you will never stand alone again. Her breath caught. She stared at him, unable to speak for a moment. Then she whispered the words that had lived in her heart since the night he bought her from the market. You did not choose chains. You chose love. The child looked between them, his small voice filled with wonder. Are we safe now, mother? She bent down, kissing his cheek. Yes, my son. We are safe. Because someone chose us when the world turned away. The human smiled faintly, his eyes softening. He looked at them both, and for the first time since the war, he felt peace in his soul. Not the silence of solitude, but the warmth of family. As the crowd began to drift away, whispers of change followed them. The merchants had lost their power that day. The guards had been forced to turn back. And the people had seen what one act of courage could do. When the house grew quiet again, the mother sat with her child near the fire. The human sat across from them, his eyes reflecting the glow of the flames. The silence was no longer heavy. It was gentle, filled with unspoken promises. She reached across the small space, her trembling hand touching his. You gave us food, you gave us shelter, and you gave us freedom. But more than that, you gave us hope. I will never forget. He closed his hand around hers, strong yet tender. Hope is not given. It is shared. And together we will keep it alive. The child yawned, curling up between them. His small hands rested in theirs, binding them in a circle of warmth. The mother leaned her head against the human's shoulder, and for the first time in years, she felt no fear of tomorrow. Outside, the stars filled the sky, bright and endless. Inside, love had taken root in the ashes of despair. The alien mother had sold herself to save her child, but what she found instead was a man who chose love over chains, and in that choice, a new beginning was born.